And we are live. David Pedersen. Hey, Sean. Hey, David. Majestic Demon. Good morning, Mr. Chandler. How are you? I am doing good, but tired. This is my third live stream of the day. I did my buddy Guy at the movies is doing a virtual film festival this weekend, so I did a live stream for him talking about YouTube, and then I have doing a YouTube course, like a pretty extensive. I mean, it's 15 hours long course. So I have a live stream with them answering their questions. And so then I just did that. Literally, that ended 3 minutes ago. I posted the links to this and then I started up over here. So this is my going into my third hour straight of live streaming for the day. Whew, takes a toll. Gamerman 9000, rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman, Wakanda forever. Yeah, I imagine we'll probably have some questions about that today. And wow, what a just shocking, out of the blue, horrible piece of news. I was at the drive-in theater with my kids. So it was like kind of in theory like a fun night, but the way it worked out was with the restrictions of COVID for the drive-in theater, you can't get out of your car and you can't turn around and sit in the trunk or anything like that. So basically I ended up sitting in the back of the van and couldn't watch anything, was just like my feet up on the ceiling and try to like play on my phone in the dark while everyone crammed into the front seat and watched the movie. So kind of a weird little experience. And, just tweeting people. I was actually cracking jokes about this weird drive-in theater experience I was having. And then I see Chadwick Boseman's died. And I was like, it's from the Associated Press. They don't lie about things like that. So I clicked over to his actual Twitter account, and they had the official announcement had made 3 minutes earlier. It was like, oh, this is real. And yeah. Yeah. I don't really have words. Rich V's, glad you avoided that large hurricane. Yeah, I didn't. I mean, we didn't even get rain, so we haven't been affected by it at all. Like at all. Mike Hammer, what is going to happen with the Black Panther movie franchise? I won't tackle that this week at all. I won't do any speculation on that subject. If you want to talk about Chadwick Boseman's career, if you want to talk about the movie Black Panther and how great he was, we can talk about it. We can talk about whatever we want, but what I do not want to do at this moment is talk about how he's going to be replaced. It just doesn't feel like good taste to me, so I won't be doing that. Like I said, there will be a time for that. I just don't feel that time is right now. So just to be clear on kind of where I'm at, I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. Majestic Demon, I was not expecting to wake up this morning and learn about Chadwick Boseman. What a loss for the world, right? I mean, that's everyone's responses. I didn't even know he was sick. And I guess he posted some pictures of himself back in April that he didn't look healthy. But your default assumption when you see something like with an actor is you assume that they're prepping for a role or there's some other context or something like that. You don't assume the worst. So I believe I saw the picture back then. I was like, oh, what's up with that? But I didn't even remember. My brain didn't file it. So I just saw this and I was, what? And I'd forgotten about it. And then I saw the picture recirculate yesterday on Twitter. So, yeah. Rich V's funny story. I went to see New Mutants, but thought I got tickets for Thursday when really it was Friday, but that was bound to happen eventually. I kept double checking. I kept thinking something like that would happen. And then it did. It didn't. Actually, I've been talking too long, but also talking about emotional stuff. So get dumb. But it didn't happen to me, but I double checked about 20 times. Hi, Sean. Why is WB releasing Tenet now when it's probably going to lose them a lot of money? Is it just a litmus test or is it Nolan forcing them? But it's not that simple, though. Like, it's not, well, if you now they'll lose a lot of money. As opposed to if they put 0 movies out in 2020, they'll make money by releasing 0 movies? No, of course not. So it's you can't just think about it in terms of individual films. What is best for the movie Tenet? Wait until everything's cleared out and then release it. That's what makes sense for that individual film to make the most money. But that's not what's best for WB as a whole necessarily. WWE as a whole needs revenue in the year 2020. They need to, like, they have debts, liabilities, they have staff. It's not like they stopped having employees just because movies couldn't come out. So, and they'd already invested all this money. So they have to have revenue now. And that's always think big picture about all of these things. You have to think about their company as a whole. Most of them have huge amounts of debt. So they have to figure out how to keep this thing going. Beyond that, Nolan seems to want it to come out. Like he wants to, seems to be the case that he wants to be kind of the person to help theaters. There's a side to it if there's a synergistic relationship between movie theaters and studios. And so if movie theaters, if AMC's like goes bankrupt, if Cinemark goes bankrupt, that hurts the movie theaters. They don't want that disruption. So at a certain level, like, okay, we're going to make less money on Tenet, but it means that the ecosystem of the theater, this whole economic ecosystem of how we release movies is hurt less. It's really complex. And then there's a side to it of, like you said, a litmus test. At some point in time, you have to take a risk. I don't know that Tenet's your best risk because that seems like a movie that in the right time could make $1 billion. New Mutants seems like a great risk because it's not the most expensive movie. It's kind of a weird deal. You just see who's going to show up. You get a vibe for how many people are actually doing this deal. And then you try out some of these other smaller things. Just see how will people show up. Tenet, that's a pretty big gamble, but if Nolan's comfortable with it, cool. It's just sometimes you just have to think about the fact that sometimes there's no good options. Because what are your options right now? Put 0 movies out in 2020 and have no revenue in 2020? That's a bad option. Put out only crappy movies in 2020 to test the waters so crappy movies don't really do a good test. That's not a good option. Take a movie that's probably $1 billion film and drop it out early on to you get a lot of data if you put Tenet out right now about what people are willing to do. But Tenet makes a lot less money. That's not a good option. So sometimes you find yourself in places in life where there's no good options, and that's where most people are right now. Adam Grunther, what is your favorite Chadwick Boseman role besides Black Panther? Jackie Robinson in 42. I don't know that I'd seen him in anything else before that, and went to see the film, and the film overall had things about it that I thought felt too forced. They felt too Lifetime Movie of the Week kind of biopic sort of deal, which is weird because they were all real things that happened, but they played in the film in a way that made them feel fabricated. So I didn't like that. But I thought he was great. And the way that they captured and through his performance and the relationship with his wife, they felt like two real people. They didn't feel like movie characters. While the scenarios in the film involving the Jackie Robinson overcoming obstacles, those felt real. It didn't, the stuff with his wife just felt like two humans that connected to each other. So that's the one that immediately comes to mind. Rich Reviews, there is a part of me that feels sorry for Josh Boone, considering there are things that are beyond a director's control. Apparently the film earned $3 million on Friday. Yeah, I mean, in light of everything, I don't think that's a bad number. I mean, some of their projections, the projections a while back were 20 million back in normal world. So if it makes half of that, like 9 million, 10 million, that's not as bad as it might have been. I mean, you think LA, New York aren't even releasing movies. Theaters aren't even open. And then you think, how many people didn't even know it was coming out until I posted my review? These are my subscribers, I mean, but I had so many comments. I didn't even know this was coming out. Oh, is this coming out? Because people just don't know because movies haven't been coming out. This movie in particular has been delayed so many times. So yeah, there's just a lot of things that make some of that complicated. If you're new to the chats, you don't need to ask questions multiple times because I just go through them in order. So I'll see your question and I'll answer all of them as long as it's appropriate. Landon, through 4 years of colon cancer, he tackled 4 Marvel movies, 21 Bridges, and Defy Bloods. What an inspiration! And I think that's one of the things that makes this so hard and shocking is that the announcement was he's died, which just just seems so shocking because we'd seen him as this strong character in all these movies. But it was combined with he's had this the entire time that he's been A-lister. He was getting lead role in 42 before that. But comic book movie A-lister started with Civil War 4 years ago. So this whole time he's really been a part of the cultural consciousness. He's been fighting for his life. And so I don't know, it just adds a lot of layers to it. Movie Lover 999, thoughts on Scream 5? The people that they got to do it, that did You're Next, that seems like a great pairing. That's the right type of person I'd want to come in. And, if I were to look at movies of the last 10 years of who could step into that franchise, they might be my number one pick. I love the Scream franchise. If you're familiar with my horror rankings, you know that. So I'm optimistic in that regard. I'm nervous in the sense that two senses. What made the first one work so well is that it was a deconstruction of slasher films of the previous 15 years while being a love letter to those films. It functions as a slasher film. It also functions as a satire of them. It does both. That's what the brilliance of it. That's why it's so good, while being a whodunit. And after they did a couple of those, they did the sequel, and I think they managed to find a way to how do you comment on horror movie sequels? But then I think they lost it a little bit with the third one. The fourth one I think was good, like 1 and 2, but it missed that kind of heart, that commentary, having something to say about the genre. And it tried to say some stuff about you have to be more extreme. It has to be live. It has to go to the internet. But I don't think it wasn't really, it was a commentary on society. It wasn't really a commentary on horror movies. So I felt like it missed something there. And that's kind of the trick, is that Scream worked so well because it was the perfect movie for that time. Because slasher movies had been the big thing for the previous 15 years. And so in order to have that same commentary, it feels like you have to transition the franchise to a different direction. So I just don't know what you do to really capture all the things that made Scream in 1 and 2 so good. I don't know how you do that in the year 2021 or 2022 or right now. Other thing that I see with it is that I just don't know that it should be Scream 5. By the time it comes out, the franchise will be 25 years old. It's worth just rebooting. For the reason I even just mentioned of, okay, let's take Scream. How do you dive into the commentary that be a love letter of horror movies of the previous 15 years while also being a deconstruction of them that's kind of satirizing them a little bit, having fun with them a little bit? How do you do that for the horror movies of the last 15 years? And it would be very different from what they did in 1996. So that I'm very conflicted. I'll be there opening night, excited, optimistic. I just have a hard time seeing how it would live up to the original. Majestic Demon, how many movies have you seen this year? Let me pull that up. Actually, let me see if I can screen share, entire share. Yeah. Whoa, that's cool. If you look around close enough, you can see hints at what I'm working on right now. So if you can see, I believe your screen share, maybe I messed this up, but I kicked off the year watching the Grudge 1, 2, and 3. Watched 3 Grudge movies and then decided I can't rank these, and so dropped it. But going through my whole list of movies I've seen, and last night I watched well, no, I didn't watch Jumanji. I can't. We probably already watched it in our household, but I can't say that I watched it. So yesterday afternoon, I saw Bill and Ted Face the Music. And if you're wondering about some other things that might be coming in the near future, a lot of these Liam Neeson thrillers. Hangover. Little teases of what might be coming soon. There you go. Whatever that number was at the bottom of the screen. I've forgotten already. I don't even know if I read it. My brain is shot. Comics Man. Chadwick left a big impression with his performance without a lot of screen time into Five Bloods. He really had a promising career ahead of him. Yeah, I mean, he could be the superhero. He can be playing biopics, and then he can be in Spike Lee films, and he worked in all of them. Tony, hey Sean, I'm from Brooklyn. My New York movie theaters aren't open here yet. I'm debating about going to Connecticut next week to see Tenet with my buddy. Do you think it is worth it? I mean, I haven't seen Tenet, so I can't comment in terms of having seen the movie. That's why I don't have a review for it. If I lived in New York City, I absolutely would drive to Connecticut to watch the movie, whatever day to open. What would I do in your situation? I would travel. I would definitely do that to see the movie Tenet. That, for me, that movie would be worth a multiple hour drive to do that. That's what I would do. I haven't seen it. I can't comment on the quality of this film, but that is what I would do for Christopher Nolan, a new Christopher Nolan film, with the ingredients at hand. Landon, congrats on another 100,000 plus video. Thanks. I wasn't expecting it to be that successful. I'd actually think they dropped that trailer, but then it was. This past week was the best week on my channel since Star Wars came out, which, obviously we didn't have a blockbuster season this year, and then Birds of Prey was kind of a dud. Onward opened right as the pandemic was starting. So obviously we just haven't had big releases, but that it made DC Fandom a tentpole event for my channel. So it's pretty cool. So it was fun. It's my, I like to come up with ideas and be creative. There is also something nice about having a week where you have success without feeling like I'm trying to manufacture energy, which that's what it was like for June. July was like, all right, what other ideas do I have? What can I try? What if I did this? What other top 10s? And then it was nice to just like have an event happen where it's like, okay, I know exactly what to make, and I know exactly what will be popular and what people want to see. Rich Reviews, I guess that Greenland is the next big release, considering that The Kingsman and The Conjuring 3 have moved. And Clifford, the Big Red Dog, is moving to next. Oh, no, Clifford. Oh, no. Yeah, I don't have Greenland on my schedule, actually, so I need to add that in there. So I guess it is. Looks like I'll be reviewing it. Groovy. Dave Patterson, I got news about Chadwick Boseman when I got home yesterday from seeing the New Mutants. It's just brutal news. Seems like one of those ones where everyone remembers where, at least, I mean, it's obviously was yesterday, but you have certain events where you kind of remember where you were at when you heard it. Like it's just like the way you process it is like, where was I at when I learned this information? I don't know. Maybe it'll be one of those because it's just weird, shocking information out of the blue. Adish, I was really surprised critics were so harsh on New Mutants. I thought it was a decent little movie, if nothing amazing. Yeah, that's especially for me as someone that does reviews and puts my opinion out there, and then my review I put out yesterday, 16,000 people have watched it, and you don't know if people are on the same page with you or not. So I went to go see it, and I'd seen some of my buddies on YouTube. They seemed to like it. And they'd reviewed it like a day before me. And so I just had the little blurb. Yeah, it was actually not so bad. And so I watched it then with my buddy Andy, my sister and brother-in-law. And we're all kind of like, yeah, I mean, it's not great or anything, but it's pretty good. Better than we thought it was going to be. We had a good time with it. Like the characters. And then I post my review. Get on Rotten Tomatoes. And it says 14%. I'm like, what? What? That doesn't seem right. And then I look at Bill and Ted, and it's 80%. I was like, what? I'm so confused by what's going on here. And then some of the people I've talked to, like I didn't see everything, but it looks like my buddy Griffin I do my podcast with, like he's in the New Mutants is awful category. So I don't know. It's weird. And you think like, did I just want to like it? It was just my friends swayed me a little bit. What just happened? But it was weird. SL, do you think for the future Batman movies they should use the Joker or have more less popular villains? I mean, I don't think it's one or the other. I I think you need to take a break from the Joker from time to time. But if you have Robert Pattinson as Batman for 10 years and we never do the Joker, then you just always go, well, I wanted to see the Joker versus this version of Batman. Like, it's weird if you don't do that. But it's also, I think, weird if you're constantly always going to the Joker. Batman has, pretty easy to argue, the best rogues gallery. And certainly of rogues gallery of characters that are easy to use, he's got a lot of them. And so the fact that it just kept being Batman or it kept being Joker, and then that's the problem. And that's where it starts to feel played out, and you start going, why can't we do something else? But at the same time, Joker sells tickets. Suicide Squad, widely regarded as a bad movie, it sold a lot of tickets, largely based on the fact of like, look, we got a Joker in this movie. So people wanted to see the new Joker. Joker made $1 billion and it's a rated R movie. So, yeah, I don't think I would want Joker in the second one, but third one, sure. I want to see assuming Pattinson is good, definitely go for it. Rich Reviews, thoughts on the return of G4 along with Attack of the Show? I don't know what G4 is, and I've never seen Attack of the Show. I know what Attack of the Show is, but I've never watched it. I mean, you asked me a lot of these questions about like bringing this thing back, and generally speaking, I don't have opinions on them. I don't have much information about them. Landon, any updates with the Stuckman collab on your podcast? No, just the full open honesty, like the podcast really hasn't been my priority since like April. Maybe even before April, simply because the year happened. My plan was for the year to have my normal strategy that I use for movies. And then how I was going to expand my brand was putting a bunch of energy into the podcast. But then the year 2020 happened. We didn't have new movies coming out. So then I had to put a lot more energy into idea creation and trying to manufacture energy and keep the channel strong, because it's not quite as easy to come up with good ideas when you don't have new movies coming out. There's not as many safe bets, easy bets, obvious wins. So then I just didn't have as much time to try and build out the YouTube channel, podcast. And so then I'm still doing it. It's still something I want to do. And it's in addition to the brand, but I lose subscribers on my podcast. I can look at my analytics, and every week that I do my podcast, I drop like 4 subscribers. If I clip something out, if the clip doesn't take off, then I lose 4 more subscribers. So it's actually a negative thing for me. And even when I've had guests on with tens of thousands of subscribers, I end up with a net gain of like 1. So yeah, if I had Chris Stuckman, it would probably help, but it's just not my priority at this point in time to try and reach out to get a bunch of interesting guests, because I only have limited time for what I'm able to do. Comics fan, what are your thoughts on the Psycho franchise? I've seen the original Psycho, but I haven't seen the franchise. I haven't seen the sequels to it. And the original, of course, is a horror thriller Hitchcock classic for a number of different reasons of how it tells its story, and it leads you to believe one person's the lead character, but they're not really. The twists, the turns, all that stuff, and all of Hitchcock's bag of tricks. But I have not seen the sequels. Dave Madison, this morning my dad texted me, I guess there will have to be a new Black Panther. Pissed me off so much I deleted the text from my phone. It bothers me that's where his mind went. Everyone processes these things differently. So I understand, like, I had people messaging me instantly, like, who do you think will be the new Black Panther? Do you think you're making a video about who? Like, and I'm trying to like politely be like, not the right time, dude. Like, you just found out someone died, and your immediately thought was, how are they going to make the next movie for me? But at the same time, there's all kinds of different reasons that people process things differently. And, if you're not super into movies and you just kind of know, you watch them, you're pretty detached from it. And so you think through it practically, like what are the implications of this new piece of information that doesn't emotionally hit me? Like that's a lot of times what I'll feel about like when sports people die, that I just didn't follow them, so I can't pretend as if like I had a big emotional reaction to it. So then I just think through the practical implications for it. It's that so everyone's different how they process this stuff, and I think we just be respectful of how other people work through things. But yeah, that's when people immediately started messaging me like, who would you want? I was like, I wanted to be ruder than I could be, because it was just pretty frustrating that literally within minutes of finding out he was dead, people are direct messaging. Like I'm processing, like I'm actively like, I never met the guy, but it's just such a sad piece of information. And then people are wanting me to, I mean, even because it's both sides, because it was both. Their thought process was, how does this affect me? Because who's going to be the guy that stars in the movie I watch? There's one side to it, but then the other side to it was also their thought was like, oh, I want to get Sean's opinion on who should be the new Black Panther, not thinking, oh, Sean's processing a death too. Adam Grunther, would you have liked to see James Mangold's spinoff on X-23, or are you content with the X-Men franchise going out on New Mutants and being rebooted? I don't know. There's a few too many factors to that, because we're kind of going at like, do I think an X-23 movie would be a good send off of the X-Men franchise? Not really. Was New Mutants a great send off of the X-Men franchise? Not really. But not even. I liked the movie. It's just not It's not designed to be a send off. It's just not designed to be that. So in an alternate world, would I be interested in X-23 movie? Maybe. I mean, I'm more interested in seeing more of the character than specifically an X-23 movie, because there's a big difference between being able to be the angry girl that's holds her own with Hugh Jackman and being a compelling character for lead character. They're not the same thing. Just because someone's a good character doesn't mean they're a good lead character. I didn't see a lead character in X-23, at least not with a angsty teenager. I didn't get what that would be. So I wouldn't have specifically wanted that, but I would have been fine to see more of the character in general, just not as a lead, as a standalone. I don't know about that, but more importantly, I'm just more interested in the whole universe being rebooted. It's kind of like the kickoff of the modern era of comic book movies, so it hadn't figured everything out on how to get the tone quite right and shared universes and continuity, and so that franchise always struggled for that reason. So the idea of the X-Men joining the franchise that has done shared universes, world building the best sounds like great news to me. So, and we also haven't had like just normal X-Men movie in 15 years, because then it went to Wolverine Solo, and then it's like do a prequel about them in the 60s, and then we're like merging two universes, but just like a straightforward, no constraints. Let's just tell an X-Men story with whatever our favorite X-Men are. We haven't been able to do the normal version of that in a long time, and I want to see it. Game Man, I recently watched Birds of Prey, and I probably have to watch it again because I'm confused on the plot, but it's better than the Ashley Scott series. Yeah, it's out of order, so yeah, it's there's some confusing stuff in it, but if you rewatch it, I think it makes when you know where it's going, you can probably put the pieces together. But yeah, the TV show from 20 years ago, not so great. Favorite James Mangold film? I almost did a James Mangold ranking when Ford vs. Ferrari came out, but it was just a little bit too busy of a season for me to be able to get the movies watched. So I don't really have one. Logan and Ford vs. Ferrari. Really like both those movies, and but they're very different. So I would need to like watch them for the purpose of which one do I think is better than the other one. Ford vs. Ferrari is more rewatchable, but Logan is obviously a character franchise genre that I love. So something like that. Artist, do you plan to do another streaming service ranking with some of the new contenders? I had it planned for August, and then August just got busy. I mean, I think I announced it too. I announced I was going to update it, and I was thinking about it. And I signed up for Quibi, so I've experimented with Quibi. I signed up for Peacock. I haven't really looked at Peacock. I signed up for it, but there was just nothing there that it interested me at all. But the last 2 weeks I've just been swamped, and I'm swamped for this next week too. So I've already watched. I've been talking about this IMDb top 15. I've watched all but Schindler's List. So that's a video that I spent 6 weeks working on, just sitting there. Ready for me to do it whenever I have an open window. I spent 2.5 months, 3 months watching all the DC animated movies from Flashpoint to Justice League Dark Apocalypse War, and watched all of them, notes written, ranking created, no time to do the video. Lost my place. Have you seen Tenet? Nope. If I'd seen Tenet, I would have reviewed it. If I'd seen it, I obviously would have reviewed it instantly. As soon as that happens Monday, I will, as quick as I can, have one up. Rich Reviews, wouldn't you be over the moon if you were referenced in a vanity article like Tyler Tompkins? So you guys don't know, Tyler Tompkins is one of my YouTube friends. When I went out to California last year, I actually stayed with Tyler. And Tyler bought a plane ticket to fly out to Austin, Texas to see Tenet when it comes out. So actually, when tickets went on sale, I asked him if he was going to be back in town on the 31st, so I would have gone with him. Like, I would have gone with this guy. But he's not. He's coming in on the 1st, and he's seeing it on the 1st. So then Vanity Fair tweeted out, hey, if you're going to fly to see Tenet, we want to interview you. So they interviewed him, and then they put him in an article on people willing to fly to see Tenet, and they actually tweeted out, Tyler Tompkins is willing to pay $220 to fly out to Texas to watch Tenet. And then several other people ran with it. So there's all these different things about Tyler Tompkins. He was the discussion of Twitter a couple days ago. So that's what he's referencing. So the question is, wouldn't you be over the moon if you're referenced in a vanity article like Tyler Tompkins? Honestly, not. It would be cool. Like, if there's some way I was referenced, it'd be cool. That's kind of it. And I don't want to downplay some of that or anything like that, but some of those things that they're just, the novelty of them fades at a certain point in time when you realize that there's not much to it. Like that I've grown an audience. That's a lasting sense of satisfaction. So like yesterday, I was referenced in a Screen Rant article. Screen Rant is not Vanity Fair. I don't know their subscriber differences, but I was referenced in a Screen Rant article with my Rotten Tomatoes score, and it was like, oh, that was cool. I'll retweet this out because it's cool, but it didn't mean much beyond that. That I'm on Rotten Tomatoes, that's an accomplishment. I did something that mattered. That I achieved it. That's what matters a lot more to me than just, hey, look, I appeared in this thing. And that it's of course cool when that happens. At some point in time, I'm sure a movie will run with some quote that I have somewhere, and it'll make it in an ad, and it'll be like, whoa, there's my name right there. But that's just, it's like a fleeting little dopamine hit in your brain. You go, cool. But what you really accomplish, that's where I think it matters a good bit more. Matt G, in the New Jersey theaters are still closed. It's ironic because they're showing old movies mostly in open theaters. I see retro movies on a regular basis when I can. Pretty cool, pretty cool. Majestic Team 10 is sitting at a respectable 81% with 122 reviews thus far. I'd heard that, but I actually don't want to know things like that before I go see movies. I avoid all that stuff. So you don't have to don't share things like that with me. Kimball Wolf, can you rank off the top of your head the beta Avengers in terms of which you enjoyed the most? For me, it was Hulk, Kamala, Black Widow, Iron Man. I loved the beta. Probably Black Widow number 1. Hulk is probably last for me. And I'm not there were things with Kamala and Iron Man that I enjoyed, and also things I found clunky and awkward. But there was a uniqueness. But Black Widow was the most intuitive because it was kind of like she was the most like playing like Spider-Man from the Spider-Man PlayStation 4 game, except she has guns. So felt like Spider-Man with guns. David Pedersen, I think people being too harsh on New Mutants. I didn't think it was good, but I didn't think it was bad. And I totally understand like that. I totally get that. And like I left the theater thinking, yeah, anywhere from like 40% on Rotten Tomatoes to 70%, that would totally make sense to me. Anything above or below that, it would seem kind of weird. And then I saw 14%. I was like, what? I'm kind of confused by this. I legitimately confused by it. Comics Man, what are your thoughts on the Batman Arkham games, and which one is your favorite? So, I mean, I have a video on my top 10 favorite video games of all time, and I talk about them in there. They're in your question is actually answered in that video, top 10 favorite video games. It's a fantastic series. The mechanics of it, exploring a version of Gotham, all of it very cool. Arkham City's easily my favorite of the bunch. That's the one I played the most and explored the most. And it's a great franchise, but more articulated thoughts in that video probably. Sharon Talks Movies. Hey, Sean, what would you say are the 3 movies that most describe who you are? Kind of like deep question. 3 movies that describe me. I don't know. I don't. I don't think I have an answer. I think you'd have to elaborate because you could mean several different things by that, and I actively don't like being defined in the manner that you're describing. So one of the reasons I don't like talking about like my favorite albums or favorite songs, one of the reasons I don't even like picking favorites is that the way people are is that we do kind of like associate them with these things and put a narrative together based off that. I just don't like that. I don't like it when people do that about me. And so I would need a little bit more flesh on the question to be able to give you an answer that would be satisfying. Tony, are you going to review Phineas and Ferb? No, I don't even know what it is. I've never seen an episode, or I don't know if I guess it's a movie now. I don't know anything about it. Don't have any interest in it. So big no for me. I'm too old. Gamer Man, I recently finished season 7 of Smallville, and at least season 6 has some moments. Season 7 has nothing. This season is very confused and uneventful. I mean, I don't think I've watched any of season 7 since it originally aired. But I'm not even sure if that's true or not. But that, I mean, like that's kind of like the lull spot after they graduate high school and they're trying to figure some stuff out. I think it picks up a good bit for the last few seasons, especially the last 2. I think they found a new groove for the show. Matchy, hot take, theaters exist in 2035, yes or no? Like more than just a niche or drive-in attraction. A question, by definition, cannot be a hot take, especially as you create it as a binary question. I mean, I think theaters will exist because it's a unique experience that people enjoy. So I don't think that's going to disappear anytime soon. Therefore, I don't. It's tough to predict in light of how weird right now is. Will right now just have too detrimental of an effect on things? But people like to leave their house. They like to do things. It's more complicated than just I have a great TV, therefore I'm never going to leave my house. People want to go places and be around people. Comedies are a lot funnier with a crowd of people. It's a lot more fun to watch Avengers Endgame for the first time with a crowd of people than it is to watch it at your home. So I don't think the movie theater experience is going anywhere. It'll change. It'll adjust. Maybe it won't be as dominant, but no. Kimball Wolf, I'm surprised to see I'm interested to see how people are going to react to Tenet. I found it to spin my mind more than Inception and Memento, and I feel that if people aren't interested and ready to be, yeah, I mean that's what I haven't. I've intentionally avoided reviews. I haven't watched any reviews. I'm aware of certain amounts of people's responses and the Rotten Tomatoes score, but beyond that, the big takeaway is like people like my mind was blown, and people being like it was really confusing and tough to watch. So a little bit of both of those. So we'll see. Rich reviews, thoughts on the cancellation of Altered Carbon. Seemed like a movie or a TV show that couldn't continue its momentum. The first season seemed to have a lot of people interested in it. I was interested and I checked it out. Seemed similar to a bunch of stuff that I'd seen before. And then it just seemed like all that energy died down with the second season. So I'm not terribly surprised. It just felt like they lost momentum, and that seems to be something that Netflix is pretty bad about. They have Stranger Things, but then a lot of the other ones they just can't sustain the initial momentum. Kimball Wolf's paying attention, asking questions, looking for thematics, breaking it down. They're not going to enjoy it as much. I'm actually wondering if I should or shouldn't bring my dad. I guess that's still about Tenet. Kimball Wolf's, I'm on your side of respecting Chadwick before thinking about the franchise. What instantly came to mind, though, was Shuri is open, similar to the comics. Adam Grunthor, who would you say is the funniest MCU character? It's tough, because there's different types. Like the one that was the biggest pleasant surprise was Drax. And so it's just some great, memorable little moments in the original Guardians and then in Infinity War. But then I think they used him wrong in Guardians Volume 2. Paul Rudd's just really funny, but you don't even immediately like he's just a funny guy, but I don't necessarily immediately think Ant-Man. The movie's funny, but he is not. Ant-Man's not immediately just like the funniest character. I don't immediately jump to that. Tony Stark's sarcasm can really cut through a lot, and he can get some laughs, and he was around a long time. So I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to really look at it and think about it. Matt, what are your kids' favorite movies? Frozen, Frozen 2, Wreck-It Ralph, Ralph Breaks the Internet, Star Wars Attack of the Clones, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, a bunch of stuff like that. I mean, I have a second channel where I do vlogs, and they've done Q&As and stuff where they answer some of these questions, and they've done some of their favorite lists and stuff and kind of elaborated on them. Rich reviews. I remember one time Russell Crowe was being interviewed shortly after Steve Irwin died. A caller asked him if he would play Irwin as a biopic. Russell Crowe went off on the caller. Good. I mean, just like people just, they forget that they're humans, and that like YouTubers are humans, actors are humans, and that they're just thinking about the product that's created, and that's what they interact with. So I get where that's coming from, but it's just not you have to pause and think about the human side to it. Matt, best and worst Disney original film. I mean, Artemis Fowl, I don't know if that constitutes an original because it wasn't created to be an original, but that's the worst debut that they've had that I've seen by a lot. Best original, I don't remember what their movies are because I don't have the list in front of me. I mean, Timmy Failure was a good movie. Lady and the Tramp was good. I don't remember what all of them are, so I unfortunately don't have a great answer. It's like I don't sit around with like lists of those rankings if I haven't made the video before. So a lot of time I just don't. It's like, okay, I watched Lady and the Tramp. Last November? I have the Gorilla movie a week ago. That's not normally how I do my rankings. I try and watch them closer together so I have more relevant thoughts on all of it. Ingrid, I like the idea of New Mutants incorporating elements of horror, as I believe that is typical horror superhero action formula can start to feel redundant. How do you keep superhero films feeling fresh? Well, I think some of it is kind of what you just mentioned, that you start to realize that they don't all have to be big action movies. And immediately you go, okay, we have these characters and we've got a lot of genres. Comic book movie isn't really a genre. It's kind of like a category, but it's not really a genre of movie. It can be in part of any genre. So then, like Logan is a Western. Ant-Man is a heist movie. So you can think through it in that regards. And then like the Guardians of the Galaxy is like a space opera, and Thor Ragnarok's a space opera, kind of like Star Wars and Flash Gordon. And so you just think through all the types of movies that they haven't really made. And Joker is a drama. It's like a psychological drama. It's a tragedy. So you just keep telling different types of stories. If all you ever do is make them big, blockbuster, spectacle films trying to top ourselves, I don't think that works. And I think that's even why for some people, like for myself, I dug New Mutants because it was a genre. It was a comic book movie, but it was a horror movie. So it's kind of like the Breakfast Club because it's people stuck in a location having to learn to get along with each other. And so I that was the novelty that's interesting me. Other people, I think they just saw the flaws and things that should have done better, but you know. Gamer Man, I did not know Michael Rosenbaum only did season 7 of Smallville. I thought he did all 10. It's going to be weird, but without him, because every time I hear someone say Smallville, he's one of the 2 or 3. Yeah, and I mean that's where some people they kind of tuned out when he left, but that's actually what made the show better. Is the plot line was played out. There wasn't anywhere else to go with it. I mean, all the as you mentioned, season 7's eventless. Season 6 had its issues, and there's all these ridiculous plot lines where you're like, oh, I don't think these 2 people should be together. And there's only so many things you can do with the people while you're trying to keep building the tension, but you can't fully pay it off because you're not have him as Superman. So he just had to leave the show, and I think that's part of why they could it changed things up enough to make it better for the last couple of years. David Patterson, do you think I would like the Bill and Ted movies? They don't jump out at me immediately as like, man, you should check out Bill and Ted. I mean, gravitate towards a lot of like serious stuff, cinematic type stuff. I heard someone describe them as raunchy comedies. They're not raunchy comedies. That's not what they are at all. They're not raunchy. They're like feel good, weird, like buddy movies. It's about these 2 guys that are just best friends, and this weird concept about them being their band is going to write this song that's going to unite the world, but they're in the first one they're about to fail high school, and therefore time travelers from the better utopia future come back in time to help them pass their high school exam. It's this ridiculous, ludicrous concept that's played for fun. And it plays it like it's ludicrous, but it just kind of balances the tone just about right. So it's tough to say. Jared talks movies, like most influential, referring to what are like the 3 movies that kind of define me. People kind of ask me a little bit about this one. It's a video that I've been meaning to do for a while and kind of gets requested on Patreon a good bit for the Patreon request video of my 10 defining movies. But I mean, kind of Batman 89 maybe, because it started my kind of fandom collecting stuff. Along those same lines, Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country, big into Star Trek at the time, so it pretty heavily influenced me. And then maybe even like Memento, decade after those 2 comes out, and helped me discover, wait, there's movies that are awesome that aren't big spectacle films. And so kind of opened my eyes to something else. Maybe Pulp Fiction, the late 90s, early zeros kind of got into those sorts of things. So those are some that kind of come to mind. It's tough to say. Rich Reviews, thoughts on Kate McKinnon doing Carol Baskin in his Joe Exotic TV series? I don't know if that's a real thing that's been pitched or not, or if you're just kind of throwing an idea out there. I don't know if there's a lot much left in the Joe Exotic Carol Baskin tank. Tiger King kind of played that out pretty well, and we seem to have fun with it. And I mean, if you do a TV series that's the Joe Exotic series, it just gets real distasteful because there's like actual cruelty to animals. Like, it's a really dark story that it was just really compelling because the people are so weird. But I mean, you hired a hitman to kill her, so it's not so sort of thing is real quickly you realize this is not the best source material to keep milking it on some of this stuff. Rich Reviews. So which streaming service will be the first to go under? I mean, Quibi. I mean, it's just dead on arrival. Peacock seems dead on arrival. They just seem like bad late additions. Quibi in particular, they just had so much invested into it, created so much original content. And I just think the central premise of the whole thing is a dud. Total dud. Betchy, the Ash vs. Evil Dead rankings were great. I think they're all good, if not great. You mean Evil Dead ranking? I haven't ranked Ash vs. the Evil Dead. That's the name of the TV show. That's a specific thing in and of itself. That's the TV version. I ranked the movies. I've only seen a few episodes of the TV show. I dug it. That's not my wife's thing, so it's not one I've been able to put time into. Gamer Man, I'll break mouth break before I I'm not sure what you mean there. Before watch Smallville season 8. The reason I take a break between seasons because in 2017 when I started watched seasons 2 through 4 in 1 week, and since I've gone back and rewatched, and they are better when I first watched them. So I gotta say that was Arrow in 2017, not Smallville. Rich Reviews, would you ever want to see an Anchorman 3? I still haven't even seen Anchorman 2, so clearly I'm not in a rush to see more Anchorman. Of the Adam McKay, Will Ferrell comedies, Anchorman's my least favorite of the bunch. Betchy, when you say IMDb 15, you mean ratings-wise and regardless of genre for your upcoming video? Yeah, the IMDb top 15. Like the IMDb top 10 or top 20, you can pick whatever number you want. I mean, it's just like it's a list on their page that's pretty famous for the movies that are the top rated movies based off IMDb users. So it's just a list that people know about. So it's all different genres. David Pedersen, I rewatched Zodiac a couple weeks ago. I decided to just go ahead and throw it in my list in my favorite movies. Very cool, very cool. I don't know when that new David Fincher movie comes out, but soon enough I'll start watching through his movies. Matt G, sorry, it meant Evil Dead ranking before. My bad. Cool. All right. If you got a few more questions for the last few minutes, I could answer a few more questions. Or if we don't, we can end a couple minutes early. Let's see what happens. Questions? Final question of the day. What's for dinner? Fish. I cycle between fish, chicken, and steak for dinner because I'm on a high protein diet. Cutting carbs, cranking up protein, cutting the fat. Doing what I can. Rich Reviews, how's your day going so far? What will you what will I do after the live stream? Edit video. I woke up, edited video for 2 hours, did a live stream about YouTube, edited video for an hour, have now been streaming for 2 hours, back to back. And now I'm going to get back to editing video. I work all the time. That's what I do. Adam Grumter, are there any Marvel Netflix characters that you think have the potential to be integrated into the MCU movies? I mean, not Netflix version. The Netflix version is just not designed for that universe. They're designed to be just darker. They're their own thing. The tone, the vibe, it's different. Like taking that version of Daredevil and being like, let's just plop him into the middle of whatever. It wouldn't feel right because they're just not designed the same. The rules, mechanics of the universe, what you expect, not. So I mean, I love the characters. I have a bunch of them. Would love to love Daredevil to show up and Punisher and all that, but I just don't think you can take the Marvel Netflix version and just plop them into the next Marvel movie and it not be like, wait a minute, this doesn't fit, or feel like, wait, why are they changing this character that I love? Kevin Walsh, do you ever listen to any of the Nandoverse movies videos? No, I don't. I don't know what that is, unfortunately. Sorry. David Patterson, I decided to go ahead and buy all 3 Bill and Ted movies. All right. Well, have fun. They're weird. They are weird, goofy movies that I think the first one in particular, it's just a solid, lighthearted entertainment. And the other 2, I think, are a bit more mixed bag. There you have it. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you back next week.